Hey y'all, welcome back to season 2 of Chantel Speaks. Today is very special to me because one of my good friends is here, Cynthia Simons. Cynthia is an OG to Chantel Speaks. She was actually on season 1 when we were just audio. And so now, today, I have her here in the building with me for video to talk more about who she is and what she does. So thank you, Cynthia, for being here.
Yes, I'm so glad to be here, Chantel. I'm excited to dig into this conversation, excited to be in Dawa Studios, and I know I'm always in good company with you.
Yes, you are. Thank you. So let me tell y'all a little bit about Cynthia. So Cynthia Simons is a powerful leader and advocate at the intersection of women's justice, reentry, and systemic reform in Texas. With a lived experience of incarceration and deep policy expertise, she brings a trauma-informed, equity-centered approach to supporting justice-impacted individuals and families. She formerly coordinated the Texas Women's Justice Coalition and a statewide leadership council and has earned a reentry peer support specialist, mental health peer support specialist certifications as well. In 2023, was honored by the Texas Coalition of Black Democrats 40 Under 40 and the Texas Legislative Black Caucus for her advocacy work. Those are some great things and insight, and I'm just so blessed to be your friend. And you reached out to me.
Yes, yes, I did. I think it's important to build in your community, to have deep, meaningful relationships, because those are the things that are going to help sustain some of the very challenging issues that we work on. So I wanted to be well connected with you because I also saw the phenomenal work that you were doing and greatly admired what you were doing.
Thank you, Cynthia. So let's dig into it. You shared openly about your lived experience with incarceration. How did that shape your path into justice advocacy?
Yeah, good question. So, when I was in elementary school, maybe I was in intermediate when Ruth Bader Ginsburg was appointed to the Supreme Court. I told my mom I was going to be the first Black woman to sit on the Supreme Court. And so I always had a lens. I gravitated towards the legal field and injustices and what I knew then as just civil rights. And then life took place, right? I was at the time, first generation college student. In my family, we were, you know, probably below the federal poverty guidelines or just above, but in a single parent household. I became a parent when I was in college, a young parent. Um, I began to survive. I grew up in a home with domestic violence. As the data would show us, that is the type of relationship that I engaged in. And I found myself incarcerated. And really, it was the stories of the women in which who I was incarcerated with. I had a lot of shame associated with where my life had taken me. I graduated high school at 15. Should have had this promising future. Yeah. That was the expectation I placed on myself, and then to become incarcerated, and all of the tragedy that led up to that point. I was really hard on myself, but I began to communicate with the women inside, listen to their stories, understand what had brought them there, try to help do, systems navigation for them while we were on the inside. And I realized I was a statistic. I was not an anomaly. Mm-hmm. And I was pissed because I felt like my socioeconomic status, my skin color, the opportunities that I had or didn't have, that these were predetermined and that they were predetermined by systems. Right. And myself, as well as many, many other women in there, had just been a part of the very well-oiled system. Mm-hmm. We had become victims to it. And so I made it, a promise to myself that I was going to release that shame. I was going to release carrying that burden solely because have accountability, and I was a part of it, but there was moral distribution to go around how I, as well as countless other women end up incarcerated. And so from behind those bars, I decided I was going to be a part of the change and no longer be a victim to the system.
That's what's up. Thank you for sharing. These systems are doing what they are supposed to do. You speak about the women and their experiences and their stories. So those women and their experiences, they're often different and underrepresented. What are some unique barriers justice impacted women face during and after incarceration?
Yeah, so if we look at the data on women's income prior to incarceration, there's a very large percent of women, I think it's in the 60th or 70th percentile, that were making under $8,000 a year. This was from a data set from, I think, 2022. So could you imagine like $8,000 annually? Women are often the primary caretaker of children, but daycare is also as much as someone's rent or mortgage. Um, Women are required to essentially separate the family in order to get any supportive services from the government. You have to report the child's father and put him on child support. So that's going to cause a rift in the relationship if you are together or co parenting. And if you're going into any subsidized, low income, income restricted housing, he can't be there. And so you're either putting your stability with your children at risk or you're putting him at risk, right?
Right.
That something could lawfully happen to him. And we all know what the statistics are with black men and police. And so it's just a dangerous situation.
Yeah.
So I think that that's a really big thing that women have to grapple with, right? And particularly women of color, right? Choosing who is most important in the family, choosing who it is that you're going to take care of, and immediately reducing the earning potential of that household by a minimum of 50% and could be all the way up to 100%, right? If a woman can't work.
Right.
I think domestic violence is another thing that uniquely and disproportionately plagues women. I think that men can also be victims of domestic violence. I think that it's more prevalent
Yeah.
in the female population and trauma. I would be remiss if I did not talk about trauma and the impact that not healing from that has on women. Men are able to disassociate and compartmentalize their feelings quite a bit more than women are. And so the trauma that happens to women essentially show up in their decision making for many, many years, right? And if the healing is not done decades later, you can still be operating and making decisions out of your trauma. And then when you think about like what does the prison, who designed prison, right? It was designed by men with men in mind. So when you talk about the carceral experience itself, it is not gender responsive.
Right.
It is responsive to the population that it was designed to hold.
Yeah. You've talked about how system breaks up families, and we're going to talk about that. And you've also talked about the healing work. You've called your work Healing Center. What does healing mean to you, both personally and professionally?
Healing to me personally means having the tools, the closure, and the understanding to navigate in an emotionally intelligent way in my own personal relationships, to be able to thrive in them, to be able to set boundaries for things that don't feel good to me, things that don't feel comfortable for me, and to be able to protect my children from harms that unhealed people or people who are not aware of trauma, right, overlook, but can have a really big impact. Healing for me means to be able to fully love people and also allow people to fully love me.
Yeah.
I think that was a big part of my responses to trauma is I could do for everybody else. I could pull everybody else along. I could, do the advocacy and whatever it was, right, to support someone else. But I couldn't allow people to do that for me. I couldn't get out of my own uncomfortability for someone to do that for me, or even to be affectionate to me, to even hug me, right? Or to kiss me, right? I think something is wrong with you. And clearly there is nothing
Right.
wrong with that. That was my trauma.
Yeah.
So it was to fully allow myself to love others and to fully allow someone to love me. In a professional lens, I think it looks like education. I think it looks like educating the community, right,
Yeah.
on what trauma responses are, what physiological responses in your body can mean, right, as it relates to trauma, how it impacts your thinking, right, and what the other side of healing from your trauma looks like. So I think it's a really big educational component, also coupled with that emotional intelligence piece, right? Because in your professional life, if you can recognize your trauma and if you can have coping tools, right, to navigate through that, you have a higher, right, level of emotional intelligence, which will allow you to elevate in most cases, right, in your careers, and also like sprinkle some of that goodness that you have, right, onto other people to be a servant leader and a change maker for other people to also rise up and follow in those paths.
That's really good, Cynthia. I'm so glad you said that because I myself literally had to tell um, my leadership team, like, y'all haven't even offered us trauma informed training. Yeah, I mean, I do a lot of work with community, a lot of trauma, a lot of, you know, others' burdens are placed onto me and their lives and their crises. And so education is definitely important, I think, in that professional lens. Um, so we're just going to get a little bit personal, not too
Okay.
personal, but in your trauma, right? And in your lived experience and through incarceration, you lost your children. And I know that was an emotional time. Um, I myself was able to see in the vantage point when you were restored your rights because you did a lot of work, a lot of legislative reform for family reunification. And before we get into that, I want to read some outstanding things that the Texas Capitol stated about you. So in 2023, in April of 2023, the Texas legislature passed House Resolution 1176, which explicitly honored you for contributions to criminal justice reform, family sorry y'all, family reunification, and your role on advisory boards. So y'all, this is what these were the words from that resolution that came out. Whereas the state of Texas is home to many women who have transcended their troubled past to become productive citizens. Among their numbers are Cynthia Simons and Justin Martinez, who have dedicated themselves to assisting formerly incarcerated Texans in rebuilding their lives. And whereas since her release from prison, Cynthia Simons has become champion for incarcerated women, their families, and has made significant difference through efforts as a peer leader and reentry specialist. She has served as a member of the Austin Travis County Reentry Roundtable and the Board of Measure, a Black-led organization that works to promote equity, to address community policing as well as health education and economic disparities. She is an advocate for the liberation of Black people across the state of Texas and has helped play a pivotal role in restoring parental rights and families torn apart by incarceration. What do you think about that, and how do you feel? How did that moment feel to you to be honored at the Capitol?
Yeah, it was a humbling moment to be in front of our legislative body that I often disagree with.
For sure.
But they do some good things, right? Like HB 2926.
That's
There's they are on the right side of things. So it was a humbling experience. It was a very validating experience.
that's good.
I think often lots of people just do the work, right? We're not doing it for accolades or awards. We're putting our heads down. We're doing the work. hoping, right, to make impact on a very direct level, right? I have been personally connected with the families, right? The first families that were able to take advantage of the change in law. So I was validated, I was honored, I was humbled, and it just let me know that the fight should continue,
Yeah.
right? Policy work is a long game. It sometimes can take several sessions. In Texas, we're there every biennium,
Yeah.
so every 2 years,
Right.
you might go to session 3 times, right? That bill passed unanimously out of the House and the Senate on its first run.
Wow.
And yes, I was championing the bill, but that was an act of God.
Yeah.
That was somebody else ordaining what was happening
Yeah.
there, because it's not a
You were the
very
vessel.
usual,
Yeah.
experience. So I just had the honor and privilege of being able to be the vessel, right? Being able to, in action with a team of other folks, right, move it forward. So it was a good experience, and it let me know that even though the fights are long, even though they're hard, that we stand on the shoulders of people who have done incredibly hard things and have lost their lives for the freedoms and liberties that we enjoy, and that I too can do really hard things, and that I too should continue to do really hard things, because that is a calling that has been placed on my life.
That's good. Thank you, Cynthia. I definitely needed that for my own self. That sometimes, we just have to keep pushing, even if it's hard.
Yeah.
So tell the people, what actually did the bill change?
So the bill changed a parent's legal remedy for getting custody back of their children if their rights had been involuntarily terminated by the Department of Family and Protective Services. So prior to the passage of the bill, if a parent was incarcerated, was dealing with CPS, had to go to rehab, or whatever the case was, right? You typically, on average, you get 1 year, 12 to 18 months to complete your service plan. If you're really, really good, you have about 12 months. If you're really, really good, your lawyer's really advocating for you, they'll extend it to 18 months. That's just not enough time for people to rebuild their lives, to come out of domestic violence, extreme poverty. You need more than that to go get a vocational trade or an associate's degree in order to earn a livable wage.
Yeah.
So your rights would be involuntarily terminated, and there was no pathway back for reunification with your child. If your child was languishing in foster care, if your child was not able to get placement, if they were placed in a home where they were being abused or neglected, and you had completely turned your life around, right? There was no legal remedy for the parent to be able to be reunified with their child. And so this bill changed that. This gave parents a legal pathway forward to file a petition to be reunified with their child if their rights had been involuntarily terminated, they were not adopted, and they were not the subject of an adoption suit. So this helps children who were not in a permanent placement situation be reunited with parents who have done the work to change the reason and remedy the reason for removal, and gives them a pathway forward to be a family again.
Wow. Great work. With this big win for you, how did it help you to fight? Did it give you more fire to fight for your own children or your child?
Yeah, so we ran two bills that session. The other bill would have impacted my situation because I maintained possessory conservatorship of my children. And so I didn't have my rights involuntarily terminated, but there's no oversight, guidance, or enforcement, so to speak, that's reasonable with parents who have possessory rights.
Yeah.
So that actually did not pass. This bill did not impact me directly
Right.
in my custody journey,
Right.
but I knew that it would impact thousands and thousands of other Texas and families. And so the work was maybe spurred out of the experience of the family separation that I had, but with the understanding that this was bigger than me and it was bigger than my children. Did this work help me when it came down to hearings, when it came down to my own court dates? Yes, because I had become such an expert, had such expert knowledge of family law and the way that it worked, that I was able to really, really inform my attorney when I had one. I was able to really be intricate part of the process. I was able to understand what my rights were, what my children's rights were. I was able to inform my children in a robust way of what we could look forward to. And when my attorney unexpectedly died,
Oh my.
a year before, or less than a year before what was going to be my final hearing, I made the really hard decision. It took me a few months to make the really hard decision of representing myself pro se, which all attorneys probably advise me against. And I would advise that to someone else because it's very difficult to represent yourself in your own storm and in your own trauma. But because
Your knowledge,
yes,
yeah.
I had done so much of this work. I just didn't think that there was a person on this earth that could represent my case and lay out the facts like I could. And because I had done the work with my own families, done healing work with other families, been at other court hearings, helping navigate other people, I had become emotionally not distant, but emotionally intelligent when navigating it, which is, very different from when this first happened, when, there was no way anyone was talking to me without screaming or crying happening. Yes.
Right. I mean, because it's a real thing. It's real emotions. But I'm very proud of you. I don't think I knew that part of your story that you did it pro se. I want to say that I remember you mentioning that your attorney passed, but just seeing the emotion of not having your child to having your child in your presence, and I'm there like just for Juneteenth. I was able to take a picture of you and your daughter and Rosie, and that's just beautiful every time that I see that, because I know the hurt that you had from it, and
Yeah.
to just, now be living in the purpose that, God has for you.
Yes, absolutely.
How do you, how do you, I'm sorry, y'all, I'm a little teary eyed. So I
It's
can't
okay. It's
see.
okay for us to cry. We don't have to be
I
strong all
can't
the time.
see.
And
I
crying
can't see
doesn't mean
my
that you're not
questions.
strong. Yes, I understand. I was very emotional, for a long time after the restoration. And, we'll take our first vacation this year together. We have a lot of firsts that are just absolutely amazing. They are bittersweet moments because it's like I should have had
Right.
so many of these
Yeah.
firsts. But oh man, so much gratitude.
Yeah,
Overwhelming amount of gratitude
for sure.
to have my family be restored.
Yeah. I definitely live on Joel 2:25, and that says that God will give you everything back that the locust stole from you. He will restore those years. And so I know that that's actually happening right now. You are living that out with you and your daughter and your family.
Yes.
But the question was, how do you advocate now for family reunification and parental rights in justice reform policy?
Yeah, so probably next session I'll carry an amendment to the bill
Okay.
where I think we did really good, but we could go a step further with some changes around. So it's not so subjective for judges. I don't think it's that subjective. I think that you have opposing parties in courthouses, and so it can be left up to interpretation. To the judge, and I think we don't want to leave so much room for interpretation. And I think that we need to appoint attorneys for parents who are filing because the child has an attorney, the state has an attorney, or the foster care system may have an attorney. So the only person without an attorney and a court-appointed attorney in these filings is the parent. So I think that's not appropriate for how people should be navigating the legal system, right? Based off of the precedent that the legal system has already set in criminal cases where a person is afforded an attorney, right? I think that we should have the same.
And would that be on the state level?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. The state would be responsible for that. Mm, it could be the state or the county because who's actually seeking to terminate it is a state agency operating within a county. So
Okay.
they would probably both bear some responsibilities there, especially because CPS has kind of been privatized in most regions. So I think it would definitely fall upon the privatized third-party entities who are now coordinating what we have historically known as DFPS, that they may incur those legal fees. But the state law would require them to do it. They would need to adhere to the state law, is my interpretation, my analysis of how that would work. Okay. So there's some more work to be done on the bill. And then I also work directly with families. The first few cases that were reunited in Texas, I went to some of the hearings and testified. I gave support. I did supportive services with the families after they were reunified. I stay in community, in contact with those families. Right now, I help people navigate the DFPS system, the petition, because an attorney is not afforded, right? And it can be, you'd need a minimum of $10,000 to just get it started. And that retainer will run out really quickly. So it's a very, very expensive process. And I also do a lot of like parent coaching and support with co-parenting, because often what happens is that people hear about the work that I'm doing and they're like, oh, I want to take my kid from this person. Can you help me, change this custody agreement, or I don't want them to see them. And so I really just kind of sit down with folks and help them to understand that systems, when you involve systems in your parenting, it is not a help for you, right? Everything that you're giving them, they will save that in their arsenal and they will use that against you when the appropriate time comes. And regardless of adult differences, right? We have to be able to put that aside to really be able to co-parent. And I think systemic issues have long caused some of the pitting against parents that happens. And then I also, deal with some of the courts and different advocacy bodies, right, to help them improve their processes. I've been a part of writing a parental rights guide with the Texas Children's Commission that I think is going to be published this year. We've been working on it for a couple of years now. So I make sure that I try to stay plugged in as much as possible with my full-time job and my kids. But it is my heart work. So if I could spend every hour of the day helping families stay together or be reunited and be healthy, right, and navigate through their trauma and heal from it, I would definitely do it.
Yes. So recently you told me that you were in school because a couple years back we had a conversation about you being an attorney. So what is your long-term goal there?
Yeah, so I do. I want to get my Juris Doctor. I'm not sure where I'm going to practice at yet, but we know for sure it's going to be in the family law space.
For sure.
Will it be limited to that? Probably not.
Yeah.
But it will definitely be in the family law realm. Yeah, so I would like to be able to formally represent individuals, because what happens now is I'm at the court and I'm supporting individuals, and the judge will scold me from the bench that I shouldn't be given representation, and then my argument is, well, I'm not an attorney, so this is not representation. Right. They're like, this is dangerously close. Yeah. Yes, it is. Yeah. Be quiet, ma'am.
Yes, so I'm looking at you now and I'm like, oh my goodness, we may see this judge with her pearls and Judge Simons Wallace.
Yes, we don't know what the future may hold, but whatever it does, it will be spearheaded by keeping families together, right? Restoring them, reunifying them. That will be at the forefront of everything that I do because I do think that that's the answer to some of our most societal issues, complex issues, right? Drug addiction, homelessness, incarceration, domestic violence, gun violence, right? Low education, right?
Yeah.
Bad healthcare outcomes, right? Like all of these things could really be solved for if we strengthened up our family units, if we really built on what does family preservation look like in these underserved communities? What does investment into the family look like so that they can build generationally like our counterparts
Right.
because they work off of intergenerational wealth, education, knowledge, bonds, structures.
Facts.
And that is one of the reasons, right, why their foundation looks a little bit different than ours, right? And so we have to really, together as a community, not rely on systems or other people to design that for us, but to recognize and design that for ourselves.
And that's good. And that's what I was getting ready to ask is like what can everyday people do to help undo harm and support system impacted individuals in their communities?
Yeah, so I think one easy thing, right, is like go volunteer. There's so many nonprofits. I think Austin has like more nonprofits per capita than any other place in Texas. And so I think find out what your niche is, right? What pulls at your heartstrings and find a nonprofit that does that work and go volunteer with them. And I also think it starts at like your dinner tables and in your social circles
Yeah.
and when you're talking with your friends and when you're parenting and you see, you know, co parents at each other, be a voice of reason, de escalate the situation,
Yeah.
help people navigate through that instead of throwing gasoline on the fire. When we see parents struggling in the community, right? Step in and be support for them, right? We know that daycare expenses are astronomical, right? What would it be for us to use these neighborhood apps, right, as a way to communicate with each other to get babysitting shifts, right? So that people aren't spending the other half of
Yeah.
their income on childcare.
Right.
And when you have a neighborhood of people doing this, right, it lifts the burden off of one or two people, cuts down your expenses astronomically, right? Makes you economically sustained in your own community without giving your money to other communities, right? To other entities and businesses that aren't actually pouring back into your community. I think it means like turning that mirror inward, right? And doing some internal searching of your own traumas, internalized racism. How can you show up to be better every day? And that doesn't mean strive for perfection. Yes, I have lots of days where I am not the best version of myself, but I own that and I recognize that. And when I recognize I'm having one of them days, I use my words, right? Like I
Right.
tell my 5 year old, use your words.
Yes.
And I tell people, this is not the best day for me. I need to come back and revisit this at another day. Like we have to table this so that it doesn't have to turn into something that we can't go back from, so that we're not projecting and doing continuous harm in our own communities. So I think those are a variety of ways. And then you need to, I mean, if you have the stomach and the tenacity, get civically engaged at your local levels. City Hall, County Commissioner, your Texas state legislator, nationally, right? Get involved and demand what you want, what your communities need, inform with solutions. Don't come with all the problems and no solution, right? But inform people on what your communities need that can support families, that can keep them together, and that can reunify them.
Amazing. Last question. Well, maybe second to last, but for the people listening who have been impacted by incarceration, especially women, what message do you want to share with them today?
I think I would tell them to be the narrator of your own story. Do the work, and know that the barriers are there, right? But don't get distracted with what everybody tells you you can or cannot do. If I would have listened to what people told me I could or could not do, none of these things that you have spoken about, Chantel, today, that I have achieved would have been accomplished. Write your own story,
Right.
do your own healing work, and do what is important to you. Do the things that you need for upward trajectory in your lives. You may get 100 no's, but all it takes is that one yes. Do not give up and do not let somebody else tell you how you have to operate. Don't let them confine you. You don't have to give that power away.
That's so good. Thank you, Cynthia. I'm so proud of you. I'm so happy that you're here in this space. I think you're brilliant, and I'm just so honored to be one phone call away. And I mean, you're just so also just so down to earth. Then you love this work that you're one phone call away to others as well.
Yes.
So that is amazing. I love you and I wish you the best. And I'm so glad and thankful that you're here. Is there any way that folks can follow you on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn? Where can they reach you?
Yes, absolutely. Before I tell them, I just want to tell you thank you, that I love you too. And thank you for giving me the honor and privilege to sit here with you today and chat with you and being a comrade in the work. We are stronger together, and I know that I am stronger because I have you on my side, right?
That's what's up.
It's going
That's
to be
okay. That's okay. This is real life.
okay. There we go.
Was that you?
Yes. But I really thought that I turned it on silent. So sorry. Okay. And
And
so,
listen, usually I tell people like, turn your phones off, blah, 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 blah.
yeah,
But
thank God
this
for
is
the
real.
Apple Watch.
This is real. Thank
Okay.
God.
And so people can find me on Facebook and LinkedIn. I'm not a huge social media fan, but you can definitely find me through there. Cynthia Simons, 1M, not two. And then, of course, Chantel has a direct line to me. And I frequently share my cell phone number. So if you need something, you can reach out to her and she'll connect you with me.
Yeah, comments below. If you want to meet Cynthia, if you need her, you want to book her, you need some anything, let us know. Follow us on Help Heal Happy on YouTube. Chantel Speaks on all of the podcast platforms. Yes, and thank y'all so much for watching again. See y'all next time. Later.